In the mid-1970s, there were 20,000 offenders in California prisons. Today, there are 168,000 inmates. All week, KPBS Radio has been focusing on California's prisons and why they're so overcrowded. One of the reasons for the increase is the state's three strikes law passed 15 years ago. The law forces many inmates to stay in prison for decades, sometimes for life. We wanted to know if it's time to revise California's sentencing laws. Here's former San Diego District Attorney Paul Pfingst on the record about three strikes.
I think the public has had an opportunity to examine the three strikes law. I think the law has contributed to a reduction in crime, but it is still too broad. And as a result, we are seeing prison populations which are extremely high, too high, that are costing the state enormous amounts of money. And I don't have an objection to paying money if it's working to the benefit of the state and public safety. But as criminals get to their 50s and 60s and even in their 40s, statistics show us they tend not to be the threat they were in their teens and 20s and 30s. What the law is doing now is incarcerating people beyond the time that they pose a real threat at quite a high cost. And I think that money could be better directed inside the criminal justice system to give us more bang for the buck and for crime reduction. We have seen in Sacramento that there has been a failure of leadership on so many issues, and criminal justice is certainly going to be one of those issues as well. As a practical reality, elected representatives are afraid to reduce a single criminal sentence for fear there will be a 30-second attack ad that will kick them out of their job. So they want to pass the buck to somebody else. Right now, the buck's being passed to federal judges who say you have to reduce your prison population. In my judgment, the only people who can change sentencing for the better in the state of California is going to be the voters, because I don't think the legislature has the stomach to do it.
So he still sounds like the district attorney, doesn't he? What do you think about his ideas?
Actually, he doesn't sound like a district attorney to me. I mean, it's amazing as I watch that how smart somebody can sound when they're not a politician anymore. He's absolutely right. Everything he said is absolutely right. There's no intelligence in our criminal justice system right now. It's emotional. Every response we come up with is emotional. Let's lock these people up because they're bad.
So, J.W., when you think about this, I mean, what about this issue of sending people to prison for life for stealing a piece of pizza or other nonviolent crimes because it's the third strike? Is that the main problem here?
No, there's multiple problems. That accelerated the problem, but I think the problems began with the drug wars. The Nixon war on drugs, which added a great deal of people into the mix for these prisons. This three strikes law accelerated it. And then the confusion over sentencing guidelines. You can go in one courtroom and get one sentence for a crime. You go in another courtroom, another sentence for a crime. All of that driven by the fact that this is a big industry. It's a billion-dollar industry. We can't afford this industry anymore, but it's a big industry.
But Paul Pfingst says that state lawmakers don't have the stomach to make the tough decisions. How concerned are our politicians about being considered soft on crime?
Well, you know, as he said, the 30-second soundbite, you're running in your campaign and you're soft on crime, and that always seems to work. But we should mention that the prisoners, the correctional union for the police officers that work in the institutions is a very, very powerful union, and one of the driving forces behind the building of the prisons, tough on crime laws, and they're the ones that will probably spend the money to back anybody that they view as anti-crime.
But those prison guards are saying it's a matter of public safety to keep those prisoners. I mean,
No, for them it's a matter of jobs. They want the jobs. They want the prison jobs, and the way you keep raising the amount of prison jobs is to increase the amount of people in prison. You know, JW's right. They have been historically very powerful. They're not as powerful as they were over the last 20 years or so. A guy named Don Novi used to be the head of that union, and he could make or break careers like that with a drop of his famous fedora hat that he used to wear.
Well, they can make and break legislation now, though. They still can. They worked very. We try to get journalist organizations try to get more access into prisons, and they were able to kill that. Governor Schwarzenegger had the bill on his desk, and he did not sign it. And we know that the prison guards had let him know that no, you don't sign that legislation.
But our current DA, Bonnie Dumanis, she told us on our These Days program that 95% of people in prison will be released. So why aren't we focused more on rehabilitation? I mean, if they're in prison, why not rehabilitate them?
That budget, which is as big as the education budget for the prisons, big as the money we spend for education in the state, 70% of that goes to salaries and bennies for these people. 5% goes to vocational programs. 5% of that budget. That's a master plan for disaster, and that's what needs to be addressed.
Well, then, when it really comes down to it, how engaged are the voters in all this? I mean, we've talked about the prison guards, we've talked about the politicians. What about the voters? What are the chances that California voters might overturn the three strikes law?
I don't think there's much of a chance, because the process always gets overtaken by emotion, and there's always somebody waiting in the wings. You can have a politician who's running for office or whatever, or you can have a campaign for smarter criminal justice laws, but there's always somebody waiting in the wings to call you soft on crime and to say that dangerous murderers and rapists are going to be roaming the streets, looking to kill your family. It's always going to happen, so I don't hold out much hope for that. But what's going to happen is that the federal court system is going to have to take over. They're going to take control of our prison system, and they're going to let people out if we don't do it ourselves.
Thank you very much, David Rowland, J.W. August.